Well, last night was night 2 of the Democratic National Convention, and the Democrats rolled out their biggest stars, their heaviest hitters, Michelle and Barack Obama, who were clearly put on Tuesday to enthuse their voters, but also to keep them far enough away from Kamala's remarks on Thursday that no one's thinking about the contrast in ability. And boy, do the Obamas have ability. They're great speakers, great, at least on prompter. They can read speeches other people wrote for them with all of the appropriate dramatics, tone, moments of emphasis. And it helps when you start out already a god before the audience that you are addressing, right? You go in there with such goodwill. They're ready. Whatever you say, you could have been like, pineapple, pineapple. They'd be cheering the same way. But they were substantive. That you can't take away. Whether they were truthful is a different story. And of course, the obvious dynamic there last night was that many of the problems they were lamenting went unsolved and were even exacerbated during Barack Obama's 8 years as president. Not to mention later again when his vice president, Joe Biden, became the top dog. All right, Michelle Obama is going to be my focus. We'll get to Barack Obama too. But let's just start with Michelle. She was the star. With all due respect to Barack Obama, who's no slouch when it comes to oratory, she was the star. Normally, you have to pay $750,000 to hear her read a speech. But last night, we got her for free. And she started out with a hefty dose of honesty.
We're feeling it here in this arena, but it's spreading all across this country we love. A familiar feeling that's been buried too deep for far too long. You know what I'm talking about. It's the contagious power of hope. The anticipation, the energy, the exhilaration of once again being on the cusp of a brighter day. The chance to vanquish the demons of fear, division, and hate that have consumed us. America, hope is making a comeback.
It doesn't seem like she's been enjoying the Biden-Harris year so much. You're not alone, Michelle. But why? Why is she feeling so hopeless? Honestly, sincere question. Why is Michelle Obama so hopeless? This multimillionaire who went to Princeton and Harvard Law School, who became First Lady of the United States, who thought so much of herself, she called her own memoir Becoming, double entendre, get it? That she's hopeless? Makes sense, since she said it wasn't until her husband was nominated for president that she'd ever felt proud of her country. So she's got a bit of a negative Nelly problem privately. It seems unless Michelle and Barack are being actively adored and lavished with praise and accomplishments, she gets a little bitter. Then she ended any doubt that Barack Obama was maneuvering behind the scenes to oust Joe Biden, which we knew, but they haven't admitted it explicitly. This is as close as we're going to get. Take a listen to how she's been feeling about Mr. Biden's candidacy.
To be honest, I am realizing that until recently, I have mourned the dimming of that hope. And maybe you've experienced the same feelings. Is that deep pit in my stomach, a palpable sense of dread about the future.
Oh, wow. Thanks a lot, Michelle. Sure, that's what the Bidens were thinking. Not exactly a ringing endorsement of our sitting president. And what are the odds, for those of you still wondering what hand Obama had in this coup or this ouster, that Michelle Obama kept her feelings to herself, or that her husband didn't share in them, or that her husband saw Joe Biden's chances as absolutely terrific? All right. Anyway, they're happy now. Joyful, even. Word of the night, of the convention, of the election. Joyful. And of course, on brand, hopeful. They are the party of hope and joy. Hope and joy. Got it? Pay no attention to the babies being aborted outside of their convention. That's also hopeful and joyful. She tried to set herself up as someone we can all relate to. Just a working class girl from the south side of Chicago who comes from a line of people suspicious of rich, fat cats. Listen to this bit about her mom.
You see, My mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed.
Folks who took more than they needed. Sounds kind of communist-y, Michelle. Later in the speech, she accused Republicans of, quote, prioritizing building their wealth over ensuring that everyone has enough. See, Michelle and Kamala want to decide when you have enough. How much wealth is enough for you? And it's not until others have enough. But in America, we encourage people to work hard on the promise that anything is possible. The American dream is you can make more of your life than you started out with. There's no addendum that says once you have what, quote, you need, what the government deems, quote, enough, you need to stop, per the U.S. government. This is just like her husband. Remember Joe the plumber in 2008? That story dominated the news cycle for weeks, months even. Poor Joe died an early death at age 49 years later. But in 2008, he was the news cycle because he confronted Barack Obama on a rope line about the fact that he worked very hard for over a decade to build his business. And now that he was just starting to edge up, he was looking at expanding, he was about to get hit with a Barack Obama tax, an additional tax increase. And they had this exchange on a rope line and where he asked Barack Obama, then candidate Barack Obama, about this tax hike. And Obama defended his tax hike, saying he wants to spread the wealth around. He wanted plumbers like Joe to pay for other people. Barack Obama later admitted on camera that, quote, I do think at a certain point you've made enough money. That's how these people think. They adorn this principle in nice language like, we need to make sure everyone has enough. And what they mean is they need to take money from the people who have worked hard and succeeded and give it to others who may not have worked hard in comparison, who may have not have done anything. Yes, there may be some people who have fallen on hard times, and we have a social safety net for them. But this mindset is a little socialistic. That's the truth. And that's why Tim Walz, by the way, is the perfect running mate for Kamala. So how much is enough money, according to the Obamas? 70 million? Because public reports estimate that is their net worth, parlayed on the back of Barack Obama's 14 years of holding political office. He did not spend 50 years in government service. He did a stint in the Illinois State Senate. He did a couple years in the U.S. Senate before he ran for office and won. All right, then he did 2 terms as president. And off of that, he's made himself over $100 million, almost $100 million, probably over, to be honest. We don't know all of the earnings. The Obamas reportedly own 4 luxury properties. A home in Martha's Vineyard, estimated to be worth some $20 million bucks. In addition to properties in Washington, D.C., reportedly bought for $8.1 million, a beachfront home in Hawaii, reportedly bought for $8.7 million, and a home bought in Chicago for $1.65 million. Is that more than you need, Mr. Obama, Mrs. Obama? Now, Michelle does not like Donald Trump, and for this, I cannot blame her. But the cluelessness of her main attack against him was palpable. Speaking about Kamala, and she was doing the contrast between Trump and Kamala, Michelle said that Kamala understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. Kamala knows that. She literally just got elevated to the nominee for president after not winning a single primary in a country in which she has record low approval ratings and in which most of her own party, including you, reportedly, Michelle, did not want her or think she could handle the job of president. It feels a little like failing forward to me. Michelle went on, saying Kamala, unlike Trump, understands that most of us, quote, will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. You mean like your kids, who definitely got into their Ivy League schools thanks entirely to their own merit, I'm sure. Unlike Trump, she implied, most of us, if we, quote, choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance. Tell it to Tim Walz, whose brand seems to be choking in a crisis. He cut and ran rather than serve in Iraq with his National Guard unit when they got deployed. And when his largest city, once he was governor of Minnesota, was aflame, thanks to the post-George Floyd riots, he let it burn. Despite the mayor of Minneapolis begging him for National Guard troops, he did not send them because he did not want to upset the rioters. It took days. Is that choking in a crisis and now elevated to the vice presidential nominee, getting a second or a third chance, Michelle? She went on, if things don't go our way, we don't have the luxury of whining to get further ahead. Really? You might want to meet one of the speakers from night one of the convention. Her name is Hillary Clinton, who lost to Trump in 2016 and then spent the next 4 years saying he was an illegitimate president and that Russia helped him steal the election from her. Or maybe Stacey Abrams, your pal down in Georgia, who all but pretended she was the actual governor of Georgia for years after she lost. Is that the kind of whining that you don't do? Michelle lamented that most of us, quote, don't get to change the rules, so we always win. You mean like changing the voting laws in Pennsylvania? The most critical of the critical swing states to allow voting by mail in advance of a presidential election, even though the legislature did not approve of this, and then fighting to get ballots not even postmarked by election day counted as valid votes. That kind of rule changing just to win? Indeed, you're correct, madam. It is annoying. She took a shot at Trump's birtherism claims, and this one was deserved, if over the top.
Now, unfortunately, we know what comes next. We know folks are going to do everything they can to distort her truth. My husband and I sadly know a little something about this. For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black. Wait. I want to know. Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
Of course, she went too far. Because Trump's reference to black jobs was obviously a short form way of saying he wants to help black Americans find jobs. And let's hope he can do it. Because today's jobs report for all of us, black, white, and otherwise, is absolutely dreadful. The U.S. economy created 818,000 fewer jobs than originally reported in the 12-month period through March of 2024, according to the Labor Department. This just hit. That is the largest downward revision in 15 years. Largest downward revision in 15 years. The Bureau says the actual job growth was nearly 30% less than initially reported over the year. So yeah, black jobs, white jobs, any jobs would be great right now. Doesn't much matter how it's labeled. And you know who created more jobs? Donald Trump, Michelle. She went on to call Trump a con man who is doubling down in this election on, quote, ugly, misogynistic, racist lies. Then she lectured us on the importance of respect, dignity, and empathy. And her husband later got up there and derided, quote, childish nicknames. So nicknames, bad. Calling someone racist and misogynist, good. That's respectful, dignified, empathetic, according to the Obamas. She went on to paint Republicans' efforts to protect minor children, just as they now do in Scandinavia and Europe, by banning the chopping off of children's healthy body parts and the sterilization of minors in the name of, quote, gender-affirming care, as, quote, demonizing our children for being who they are. That's how she phrased it. She said that only makes us small. All of that attempted enforcement of, the consent laws. In all of this, In all of this, her soaring speech, her dishonesty, she was found inspirational by that crowd, which was on its feet in adoration. And that is where Michelle is in her sweet spot. Misleading, attacking Republicans, ripping the foundational ideals of America, and finding herself once again the subject of Democrats' worship. Do you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns? Well, along with hiring tens of thousands of new agents and field officers this year, the IRS kicked off 2024 by sending over 5 million pay-up letters to those who have unfiled returns or balances owed. Don't waive your rights and speak with them on your own. That's a mistake. Don't do it. Tax Network USA is a trusted tax relief firm, and they've saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and they can help you secure the best deal possible. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay, or if you're on a fixed income, they can help. Finally, resolve your tax burdens once and for all. Call them at 800-245-6000, 1-800-245-6000, or just visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Don't let the IRS control your life. Empower yourself with Tax Network USA support and take charge of your financial future. tnusa.com/Megyn. Go there today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.